Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we got another PowerPoint presentation. Everybody liked the first one so much I decided to make another one. Hopefully it's just as glorious and fabulous as the first one was. A lot of people are saying that Intimidate should get nerfed. So I decided to make a whole PowerPoint presentation about why Intimidate shouldn't be nerfed. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Intimidate! By me. That's me, Andrew Levine. Hi, how's it going? So a lot of people, like I said, have been calling for a nerf of Intimidate. They feel like the ability is too strong. And I disagree. I think Intimidate is very important for the balancing of the game. Let's talk about it. So, talking about Intimidate. Wow, I just said that. It's like I wrote the PowerPoint or something. What is Intimidate? Why is Intimidate important? And what would happen if Intimidate received a significant nerf? We're going to talk about these things today. Let's jump right in. So the first thing, what is Intimidate? Well, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, you just don't play VGC, or I don't know. If you somehow are on this video and you don't know what Intimidate is. Intimidate is an ability in the Pokemon series of games that lowers the attack stat of each opposing Pokemon by one stage upon its activation. So basically they go from having no stat stages to having one stage of decreased attack, or like it's like 0.67 times their attack stat instead of, you know, the full 1 times. And then Intimidate will activate anytime the Pokemon with the ability Intimidate becomes the active Pokemon. So anytime like the battle starts and Intimidate is on lead, or anytime that Pokemon switches in. There's also a couple of other like edge cases with like Neutralizing Gas or something, where when the Pokemon with Neutralizing Gas switches out, it treats the abilities as if that Pokemon had just become active. That's another situation where it would activate, or like Skill Swap or something. Basically just any time Pokemon becomes active or the ability would activate for another reason, it lowers the attack stat of both opposing Pokemon, or just one opposing Pokemon, or 3 opposing Pokemon, or 5 if it's a, you know, like it's a horde battle. Those sorts of things. Intimidate will lower the attack of each opposing Pokemon. Why do we need Intimidate? Well, this is what Intimidate does for competitive Pokemon. Intimidate has been around for so long, since, you know, about Gen 3, and a lot of Pokemon have it, that physically attacking Pokemon are balanced around Intimidate. What does that mean? Well, they tend to have higher attacking stats than most special attackers, and this is just true on average. If you look at like every physical attacker and every special attacker, on average the physical attackers tend to have higher physical attack than the special attackers have special attack. Physical moves are higher base power on average. So something like Earthquake, which is base 100, is stronger than Earth Power, which is only base 90. Glacial Lance has a higher base power than Astral Barrage, and that's because Intimidate exists. So physical attacking Pokemon's stats and their move base power tend to be higher on average. And that's because Intimidate exists. They know that there's balancing around these physical attackers, so they make the game that way. The next thing is that ground and rock type coverage are more likely to be physical. So, a Pokemon is more likely to learn like Rock Slide than it is to learn like a good special attacking rock move like Power Gem. Or a Pokemon is more likely to learn, you know, like Earthquake than it is to learn Earth Power. And that's just true. And these two typings are probably some of the best like coverage moves to have, because Rock and Ground just hit so many things for weakness. Well, since those moves tend to be physical more often, if we don't have Intimidate, then it's harder to mitigate Pokemon who have access to these great coverage moves. What else does Intimidate do? Well, Intimidate helps prevent snowballing. What does that mean? Well, basically snowballing is like when a Pokemon gets one stat increase, and that allows it to get another stat increase, and another stat increase, and another stat increase. This can happen with setup strategies, so Pokemon who learn Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, stuff like that, it's really easy for them to get that boost and then like KO something and then get another free boost if there's no Intimidate around. The only way to really counter this sort of strategy is to lower their stats. And physical Pokemon tend to be bulkier than special attacking Pokemon, so it's easier for them to take advantage of these setup moves than it is for like a special attacker to do. The next thing is that Intimidate keeps Pokemon with abilities like Moxie in check. So this is abilities like Moxie, Beast Boost potentially, As One also does the same thing, Chilling Neigh. These are all abilities that when they take a KO, a stat is raised. And usually it's going to be the attacking stat, so that attack stat. And without Intimidate, it's harder to keep those Pokemon in check. And yes, there are special Pokemon who have these kinds of moves, but they're more frail, like I was saying before, and they tend to have way less move coverage. So they have like a smaller pool of moves to choose from, so it's harder for them to take these KOs consecutively like it would be for, something like Gyarados. Gyarados is a really good move pool. It's got rock, water, grass, fire. It's got all the coverage you need. So Gyarados with Moxie could be countered by a Gyarados with Intimidate. Just as an example. Here's a quote from a YouTuber, a Pokemon YouTuber enthusiast, Marcos Moxie Boosted Perez. Once they said, "Please tell me they didn't nerf Intimidate. It literally holds the game together." I think this is a true statement. Like I was just saying, a lot of the game is balanced around Intimidate existing, and if Intimidate just disappeared, I think that'd be pretty bad for competitive Pokemon as a whole. Now, I don't know how much it would affect singles. I don't know how good Intimidate is in singles, but I imagine there's at least some level of Intimidate cycling that can exist. If you look at singles usage stats, Landorus Therian is the most used Pokemon at OU, and it has Intimidate. Now, I don't know if that's because of Intimidate cycling. It's just the best Intimidator, but that's something to keep in mind. What would happen if we didn't have Intimidate, or if Intimidate received such a significant nerf that it was just like a bad ability? Well, physical attackers would be unchecked. Many physical attackers, like Calyrex Ice Rider, if you played any of the series that allowed Calyrex Ice Rider, are really only balanced because of Intimidate cycling. If your opponent gets the Trick Room up and Calyrex Ice Rider comes in and you don't have like an Incineroar to switch in, you're pretty much boned. Like, you just lose. It's very hard to make a comeback from that unless you have some sort of Intimidate cycling or damage mitigation to get around it, because it's very, very easy for Calyrex Ice Rider to snowball through Dynamax and then just Glacial Lance to win the game, because Glacial Lance is a very strong spread move. We'll have to be, if Intimidate was like significantly nerfed, we'd have to be more reliant on things that are less reliable, like Will-O-Wisp. Burn would become the best way to lessen the damage of physical attacks. If you don't know, Burn essentially halves the base power of any physical move that the Pokemon who is burned uses. So it doesn't halve the attack stat, it halves the base power of the move. So it still works for things like Body Press that don't use your attack stat in calculation. But we'd have to be more reliant on Burn, and Burn is just a lot harder to do than like Intimidate. Will-O-Wisp itself is only 85% accurate, and the majority of moves that have a chance to burn, it's only like a 30% chance, and it's just not something that you can rely on. Things like Scald, Flare Blitz, Flamethrower, they only have this 30% chance to burn, and that's just not very reliable. It's not like I'm hoping to get a burn here and I'm going to be able to get it when I need it. It's I might get a burn if I'm lucky, and it'll be a nice little bonus. And the other thing is that Hyper Offense as a whole becomes a much more viable strategy if we don't have good if Intimidate's not a good ability, because there are a lot of support Pokemon who support through damage mitigation and just like being annoying for your opponent, who rely on Intimidate. Things like Hitmontop, Incineroar, stuff like that. They really need Intimidate as part of their toolkit to kind of function, if that makes sense. And now I hear all the people saying, well, Intimidate's too good. Incineroar's, stupid. It has the highest usage, like every format it's allowed in. And this is true. Incineroar is stupid. But Incineroar is not stupid because it has Intimidate. Incineroar is stupid because Game Freak gave it stupid moves. What does that mean? Well, Incineroar is kind of a problem by itself, and of course Intimidate doesn't make the problem any better. But Incineroar topped regionals before it got access to its hidden ability. It topped regionals before it had Intimidate. Incineroar's move kit and like typing and its like stats are all just like really, really good for what Incineroar wants to do. It's one of the only Intimidate Pokemon that gets access to switching moves. Most Intimidate Pokemon don't get U-turn, except for like Landorus Therian. But Incineroar doesn't just get U-turn. It gets Parting Shot. It gets Snarl. It gets Fake Out. It just has all of the tools that like are spread across every other intimidating Pokemon on one thing. Paired with a really good typing, Dark and Fire, you can't be taunted by Prankster Pokemon, you're immune to just like Prankster moves overall. And you have an immunity to Psychic type moves, you have like a million resistances, and you have the bulk to back it up. So really, Intimidate's not the problem, it's Incineroar. And I feel like they need to like just take away some of Incineroar's moves next generation, but maybe that's an ability. That's another PowerPoint presentation all to itself. So here we are at the end. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you're here at the end, I really appreciate you. You're a good person. Make sure that you leave me a like, leave me a comment. What do you think about Intimidate? Do you think it should be nerfed? If you think it should be nerfed, let me know down in the comments below. What kind of nerf would you give it? If you don't think it should be nerfed, let me know that too. And go ahead and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We are so close. We're only like 280 subscribers away, which is really not that much. We can get there if we try and work together. And if you want to see competitive Scarlet and Violet content, literally as soon as I possibly can, when Scarlet and Violet comes out in a week from today, go ahead and subscribe as well and turn on notifications, because I will be bringing you that content literally as soon as possible. And with that, everybody, my name is Andrew. I'll catch you guys next time.